When you coin the phrase ARCA brakes, stock car racing fans immediately know what that means. Since ARCA's inception in 1953, we have seen numerous accidents that have left us scratching our heads. I thought the worst ARCA race of all time had taken place in 2005 at Daytona. This big one was absolutely insane, but as it turns out, I was completely wrong. No, actually what took place on November 9th, 1996 at Atlanta Motor Speedway definitely takes the cake as probably the most brutal ARCA race of all time. This is the worst case of ARCA brakes. Since ARCA's first race at Atlanta Motor Speedway in 1984, they had had a bunch of terrible accidents, some of the worst in series history. Thankfully, none of these accidents resulted in any sort of fatalities. However, what I find funny is despite all of these brutal accidents taking place, the ARCA series continued to race at Atlanta Motor Speedway twice a year. For the races that took place in 1996, they were totally night and day. The spring edition only had a total of 4 cautions, but didn't have any sort of brutal wrecks whatsoever. Tim Steele went on to win that race, and by the time we return for the second edition, he's already clinched up the championship by winning damn near half of the races, 11 out of the 24 to be exact. The 1996 General Tire Hoosier 500K would be the last ARCA race for some in the field, as some would be moving up to Winston Cup, Truck, and Busch Series. While they were moving up, some others were making either their debuts or were about to run full time. Here's the first issue. A lot of these guys were coming from series that ran mostly short tracks. Even the last guy on this list, Jeff Jones, as we see now in the video, this was his first ever professional race at one of the fastest mile-and-a-half tracks on the circuit. Another issue was the noticeable speed differences amongst the field. I know these are just qualifying times, but clearly there are huge disparities of equipment and speed amongst the field. And also, some of the drivers in the field have never ran a track this fast in their lifetime. It's not like this is the first ever ARCA race to have that type of problem, but for whatever reason, this race would become the most brutal in series history. A race so brutal that even some racing fans who watch racing solely for the wrecks wouldn't even find this one amusing.
Early on here at Atlanta Motor Speedway, Tim Steele has zoomed away to take the lead as we are in the early lap. 6 of 204 are complete. As caution on the speedway, heavy impact. Car number 80 and one car tumbling end over end out of turn 4 as contact continues.
That's John Gill, the 80 car, I guess.
And the 24 looks to be one car, Mickey Hudspeth, out of Ronda, North Carolina.
Now, he's right on the apron there. We can see he's right on the apron of the racetrack. He loses the back end, and when he tries to save it, he goes up, smacks the wall, and then the car starts tumbling over backwards, and Gill does almost identically the same thing he did when he got sideways. He tried to correct, and instead of the wall to hit, he ran right into the side of Hudspeth. And then along comes the 56 of Whittemore. There's Billy Thomas. There's the 26 car, Blaze Alexander. Boom, he tries to get through. He gets the right front knocked off on his car.
One of the worst non-ARCA series fatal crashes took place on lap 7. Mickey Hudspeth, driving an ex-Brett Bodine Ford, lost control while running inside the top 10, hit the outside wall with enough force to send his car into a wild side-over-side flip. It triggered a minor big one involving pole sitter John Gill and Dale Whittemore also taking hard hits. Mickey Hudspeth and John Gill would both be injured in this melee. Gill underwent surgery immediately following the race for a repaired fracture bone in his upper left arm, but unfortunately for Hudspeth, it would be way worse. The window net had failed to keep his left arm in and was flailing all over the place while he was flipping over. While doctors at Georgia Baptist Medical Center spent 2 hours in surgery that Saturday night attempting to save his hand, they couldn't. And with the hand partially severed, they had no choice but to amputate it. Long after Hudspeth's amputation, he was still able to run several races in the Hooters Pro Cup Series during the late 90s. Once the race got back going after a long red flag, it was looking as if Tim Steele was about to steal another win yet again. We didn't even reach lap 40 before the second brutal wreck of the race had taken place.
side-by-side action, and Standard just jumps on the button. Got his own engine in the car owned by Jim Wilson.
Takes the spot away.
No! Trouble up in turn 3. Ron Burchett's car slams the concrete backwards and now tumbles on its roof. Traffic trying to separate, and there comes, looks like the Zero car. That was Delma Coward. Oh my goodness, heavy impact in turn 3.
What was supposed to be just a single car spin on the backstretch turned into disaster. Ron Burchett's Pontiac had spun and hit the split in the wall and went into a wild roll. While scraping down the track on its driver's side, Burchett's car was then broadsided by the spinning car of the late party animal himself, Delma Coward. Delma was okay, but Burchett would end up being airlifted. Thankfully though, he had no injuries beyond a concussion. Anyways, the race continued and Tim Steele was still looking as dominant as ever. Okay, alright, I promise, that's the last time I'll do that. We finally had gotten some green flag racing in, but during one of the green flag pit stops, the second place car of Matt Hutter sent it in way too hot in his pit stall and nearly wiped out his crew.
Benny, just like we saw Billy.
He slid through the pits. He slid through the pits. Now they're going to push him back. See, just inexperience. You have to be able to stop that baby. Trying to make that great pit stop.
A couple more cautions were brought out later in the race for blown tire incidents, which led to one of the funniest safety truck follies in stock car history.
It's a safety truck, isn't it?
See, oil drop truck. Yeah. Jump, baby. Oh, that's it. That's the way I'd get in.
No. Bailed him in there.
What?
Yeah, turn it the other way.
Yeah.
That guy in the passenger seat must be. He must be a big wheel. You don't have to get him push or nothing.
As the race got further along, Tim Steele kept pulling away. With some occasional battles from Rich Bickle and Joe Bessie, nobody had anything for him that day. Unfortunately, on lap 120, the race would see its third brutal wreck of the day.
6 car of Perry Tripp comes off the corner, spins. And the car's still going. No, and he gets hit by Doug Reed. Oh, my goodness. Almost all the cars made it. Now, Jeff Jones in the 8's going to spin, but so far he hasn't hit anything. Put it in gear, Jeff. Drive. Put it the one on the right. Hit it and go.
That's the 8 car. Other traffic now coming by. Debris all over the backstretch. And there's the Doug Reed car, the med partner. See, there's Bobby Bowser going by.
Perry Tripp had looped it on the backstretch and bounced off the outside wall, then got plowed into Doug Reed at full speed. Fortunately, everyone in this incident was okay and nobody needed to be airlifted for further evaluation. On the other hand of this accident, the 8 of Matt Jones, who I mentioned earlier, is in his first ever professional race, avoided damage altogether, and despite all the wrecks that have taken place, he's still out there. The later stages of the race saw Tim Steele's dominant performance stall out. They couldn't get the car adjusted for the late going, and Joe Bessie took full advantage. But of course, before the race could end, we would have one more brutal wreck.
Got a crash coming off the second corner. There's 3 cars over there. Heavy damage to 3 of them.
Mike Cicchetti in car number 17 there, who had been posted, our leader earlier.
And that's Mike Cicchetti's car. Mike needs to climb out of that Chevy there. The safety crews and firemen on the scene. The back of that car pretty well used up.
Mike Cicchetti spun and backed the blue 17 all the way into turn 2, with Hill and Cross crashing right behind him. The impact ruptured the fuel cell and led to a small fire in the wreck's aftermath. Because of all the wrecks that had taken place, the race would end up being shortened to 196 laps. Joe Bessie wound up scoring the victory in what would be his only ARCA Series win. In total, only 6 drivers would finish on the lead lap with an astounding 25 DNF DNFing. You'd think a brutal race like this would prompt ARCA to never run here again, but actually quite the opposite. But unfortunately, the first race in 1998 would be marred in tragedy by the unfortunate fatal accident of Chad Coleman. Entering the new millennium, ARCA downgraded to just one race a year, and after the 2003 season, the ARCA series would never return to Atlanta again. Whenever you tune in to an ARCA race, you always expect at least one type of ARCA brake incident. But in the case of this race, we had a multitude of ARCA brake incidents that were so brutal it made the fan base's stomach turn. Which is why the 1996 General Tire Hoosier 500K will always be the worst case of ARCA brakes. And once again, that'll do it for another video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Black Flags Matter. Catch you next time.